Valvoline presents the Indycar World Series. Firestone, the science of safety.
Hello and welcome back to IndyCars. This is Ben Edwards, and over the next hour we're going to take a look back over last year's championship to remind ourselves about Nigel Mansell's record-breaking debut season in the American racing formula, and to take a look ahead to the start of the new season tomorrow in Surfers Paradise, Australia. 12 months ago, Nigel Mansell lined up on pole for his first IndyCar race, becoming the first debutant to do so for over 40 years. The reigning Formula One world champion was having to adapt his style to driving the bigger, heavier and slightly more powerful IndyCar, and would have to deal with refueling, manual gear changes and a lack of electronic gadgetry, which had become so much a part of Formula One in his world championship winning year. Driving for the Newman-Haas team, Mansell was effectively stepping into the shoes of Michael Andretti, who'd departed to go his way into Formula One with the McLaren team. So Mansell set off from pole position in the first race of the year at Surfers Paradise, the only round of the IndyCar World Series to take place outside North America. The other races occurring all within the United States and a couple of races in Canada. Mansell's teammate Mario Andretti, the highly experienced veteran in the second of the Newman-Haas Lolas, giving Mansell very valued experience and background in the sport. The first race of the season held over a street circuit at Surfers Paradise, and many commentators reckoning that this would suit Nigel Mansell very well. Renowned for his abilities on street circuits in the world of Formula One, this circuit on the Gold Coast of Australia really suiting his style down to the ground. His pole position time, 1 minute 38.855, and that was just a fraction quicker than Emerson Fittipaldi, who lined up alongside him on the front row of the grid. The Penske team really looking to be the main opposition for Mansell in his debut year of IndyCar racing. Emerson Fittipaldi, former champion back in 1989, and looking to try and take another IndyCar championship. Another man from the world of Formula One, although Fittipaldi was Formula One world champion way back in the early 70s, in 1972 and 74. The second row of the grid saw the other Penske car, that of Paul Tracy, the young Canadian, going into his first full season of IndyCar racing, having driven and tested for the Penske team for just over a year before that. Lining up alongside him, young Californian Robbie Gordon, a man to make his name in the world of IndyCar racing last year. Arie Luyendyk, former Indy 500 winner and one of the most experienced men in IndyCar racing, Mario Andretti, going into another season of racing and looking for his 52nd career win. Scott Goodyear, another of the quick Canadians competing in the 1993 championship, who'll also be racing this year in 1994. Alongside him, Raul Boesel, the Brazilian, who's been very experienced both in the world of Formula One and in IndyCars. One of the youngsters taking part in the 93 championship, Jimmy Vasser, somebody to look for in the future and certainly someone to look for in this 94 season. Well, the 1993 season got underway with Mansell from pole position. The pace car pulled off and Mansell took his first rolling start that he'd taken since his days of karting. He didn't get it too well. Emerson Fittipaldi in the number 4 car took the lead from Paul Tracy in second place, Robbie Gordon in third, Mansell dropping down to 4th position. Through the first chicane, a little bit of drama already for Mark Smith, who managed to keep on the track, but Robbie Buell lost control of his MyJack sponsored car and had to rejoin further down the field. Robbie Gordon was looking in a very determined mood as Raul Boesel went down the escape lane. Jimmy Vasser also spinning off in this first lap, and Scott Goodyear there in the background, another man to lose out in the early going. Gordon came through up into second place in the Copenhagen AJ Foyt run car and was looking very threatening indeed. But Paul Tracy ran into trouble with his Penske. Mansell taking third place when Paul Tracy's right rear suspension collapsed, the rear pushrod breaking, and Tracy therefore having to take a visit to the pits. Paul Tracy was able to get going once again. You can see there the problems on the right rear. Actually see pushrod poking up where it shouldn't do. He was able to rejoin, but was able to only continue for a little bit longer before electrical problems intervened, and Tracy was out of this first race of the year. On board with Nigel Mansell. And a view as he clouts the curves through the chicane. A couple of slow-ish chicanes here at Surfers Paradise, where using the curves can really save some time, and that was certainly Mansell's technique. Here he was chasing after Robbie Gordon, looking for a way up into second place down the inside for Mansell, and a very clean, smooth overtaking manoeuvre. Mansell then adapting very, very quickly to IndyCars in his first ever race, adapting to a manual gear change, having been used to the automatic version in the Williams the year before. This was Scott Brayton and Al Unser Jr. going off. Al Unser Jr. losing it under brakes as he tried to get past Scott Brayton, and Brayton forced out wide down the escape road to avoid hitting little Al. Mansell now was closing on race leader Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi had won here previous year. He was looking to try and take another victory. Mansell over the curve through the chicane once again, very close to clipping the wall, but just about getting away with it. Now he was really beginning to apply the pressure to Emerson Fittipaldi. And finally he found the opportunity, locking everything up, diving down the inside, almost running wide and into the retaining wall on the outside, but Mansell was able to squeeze through and in true Mansell style take the lead from Emerson Fittipaldi. That was not the end of it, however. As they went into the race, it was deemed that Mansell had overtaken under yellows. He'd also flat spotted his tyres, so he had to come into the pits and go back out. And he also had to make another stop a little bit later in the race to change a punctured tyre. That meant that Mansell dropped back, and here we can see him, after making those two stops, retaking the lead from Emerson Fittipaldi, and once again coming to the front in his first IndyCar race. Into the latter stages then, Nigel Mansell was able to pull away enough of a lead so that when he made an extra stop, a third and final quick fuel stop, he was able to hold on to the lead from Emerson Fittipaldi. Robbie Gordon there, the last of these few cars we can see, in third position as Mansell continued on his way. There he was in first place. Look back, there's Emerson Fittipaldi in second place. Robbie Gordon in third place, just behind the car of Bobby Rahal. Rahal in the Miller Genuine Draft car, just holding on to sixth place from Eddie Cheever. But it was to be a debut win for Nigel Mansell in the Newman Haas Lola. The first time that a first-time racer in IndyCar had won his first IndyCar race since Graham Hill back in 1966. And Mansell coasting to a halt on the slowing down lap, having run out of fuel. It was that fine calculation right to the end of the race, and the Newman Haas team had made their calculations absolutely perfectly. Mansell the victor over Emerson Fittipaldi. A great drive from Robbie Gordon to hold on to third place, and Mansell's teammate Mario Andretti in fourth position. The Lolas looking good, but so were the Penskes, with Fittipaldi there in second position. Further down the list, Rahal holding on to a good sixth place in the Rahal Hogan, their own chassis, a development of the True Sport chassis, but that was to be just about the best result of the year for the Rahal Hogan, and Bobby Rahal was to change to a Lola chassis later in the year. Moving on through the year then, and on to one of the later rounds at Milwaukee. Raul Boesel on pole position for this race, and Mansell managing to qualify in seventh place. This was Mansell's first race on a 1 mile oval. The previous weekend he'd taken part in his first ever oval race at Indianapolis. He was due to have raced on a 1 mile oval earlier in the year at Phoenix, but a qualifying accident which had seen him punch a hole in the retaining wall during the second qualifying session meant Mansell missed the first 1 mile oval race that he was due to race in. He had to sit that one out, and therefore his first race was Indianapolis. This was his first race on a short oval, and at the early stages of the race he was just finding his feet, learning the way around the circuit and seeing what it required. Well, somebody who didn't quite establish what was required was Stefan Johansson. Johansson crashing the Tony Bettenhausen Penske, and Johansson unhurt, but causing one of the first full course yellows of the season. Raul Boesel continuing to lead at this stage from Emerson Fittipaldi in second. Goodyear going very well in the Derek Walker run Lola. Mansell down in 7th place at this point in the race. Just 8 laps completed of the 200. Johansson's car transported away, looking a little bit the worse for wear, and the race restarted again. Brazilian Raul Boesel in front of Emerson Fittipaldi and Scott Goodyear in 3rd position. Robbie Gordon in 4th, and Canadian Paul Tracy in 5th position in the other Penske. Oval racing, very much a speciality of the Indy cars, but as Nigel Mansell was to find out during the year, it requires an awful lot of skill, not only in terms of setting the car up so that the car is working at its optimum all the way through the race, but also in terms of racecraft, in dealing with traffic, in finding a way past the opposition, finding the quick line through the corners. And Mansell certainly learnt to deal with the ovals very, very effectively indeed. Here he was chasing teammate Mario Andretti. Andretti, who was IndyCar champion for the first time way back in 1965, and still going strong in 1993. Mansell round the outside of Mario Andretti, moving up into 3rd position. Now beginning to look a little stronger, looked as though he was beginning to feel a bit more familiar on the oval course. Goodyear there, challenging now Raul Boesel for the lead of the race, and Scott Goodyear going all the way around the outside of the Brazilian and taking the lead as we went through this Milwaukee mile race. Back in 3rd place, Fittipaldi, keeping in touch with the race leaders. Scott Goodyear, the 33-year-old Canadian, now out in front. An experienced hand in IndyCar racing, having completed several full seasons of IndyCar racing. Started racing in Canada in Formula Ford and Formula Ford 2000. Raced in the Porsche Turbo Cup as well in Canada. But here he was going well at Milwaukee. Won the Michigan 500 in 1992. That has been his only victory up to this point, and he was looking for a win here. Lapping the back markers and pulling away from former leader Raul Boesel. Mansell now in 6th position, chasing after the 2 youngsters, Paul Tracy and Robbie Gordon. Tracy started to move up a little bit, finding a way past, or trying to find a way past his teammate Emerson Fittipaldi. At this point, Tracy really did start to become the man threatening for race victory. Into the pits came Tracy for one of the scheduled fuel stops. 2 stops in each 200-mile race. Change of tyres and 40 gallons of methanol added to the cars before they're sent back out again on their way. Well, Tracy was able to come up into the lead of this race in the latter stages and was looking very, very strong for the race win himself. At this point, Goodyear was still leading, but it wasn't to be a good day for Goodyear. Leading the race, but gearbox problems dropping him out towards the end of the race and denying him the victory that he sought so keenly. Fittipaldi into the pits for his scheduled pit stop. Not quite on the pace of his teammate Paul Tracy. Goodyear into the pits. It wasn't to be much longer after this that gearbox problems intervened and put him out of the running for the 1993 event. It was a little bit the story of Goodyear's season in the early part of the year. Had quite a few problems when he was running well. He was the pole sitter at Phoenix, but a lot of problems put him out of the running. So later on in the race, Paul Tracy had crashed out of it by this stage after leading. Raoul Boesel now in front of Nigel Mansell, but Mansell was beginning to really apply the pressure, and he was now looking for a way through into the lead. All of a sudden diving through on the inside as they came out of turn 4. Nigel Mansell coming through into the lead, and Mansell it was now leading his oval debut on the 1 mile oval and looking to take the first victory here by an Englishman since Jim Clark. There it was, the checkered flag for Nigel Mansell ahead of Raoul Boesel. His first ever oval victory, and it was to be the sign of things to come, with more victories for Nigel Mansell on other ovals throughout the course of the year, which we're going to take a look at in just a moment. Come back with us here on Eurosport. Our look back to the 1993 IndyCar season continues with a look at the Michigan race, the Marlboro 500, and the second of the 2 500-mile races held throughout the season. The Indy 500 having been held at the end of May, where Mansell had run so well, and this the second 500-miler of the year at Michigan. The American anthem starting things off as ever in the IndyCar series and providing the background and the atmosphere for the start of this race. Mario Andretti on pole position with the fastest ever qualifying lap, 234.275 miles an hour average. Remember, that's the average speed over the course of the lap, and that is the existing record for the qualifying lap anywhere in the world. So Mario Andretti holding on to that. Mansell alongside him on the front row, Arie Luyendyk third fastest, and Raoul Boesel fourth fastest. Notably, all of the Ford Cosworth XB engined runners right up at the front of the grid, and then Paul Tracy, the first of the Chevy Ilmor engined cars, in 5th place on the grid. So the Ford Cosworth engine really was going superbly well on the flat out stretches of the Michigan circuit. Mansell had found the circuit extremely physically tiring when he went out in qualifying, and track conditions on a race day not as bad as sometimes, not as debilitating as it can be in this part of the world, but certainly a long and tough race in prospect. This one of the bumpiest circuits on the IndyCar calendar. Mansell saying in qualifying after his fast laps to put him on the front row that he could barely see where he's going. The vibration through the bumpiness of the circuit meant that he was losing focus and could barely see where he was going as he was turning into turn 1. Well, still did a superb job to qualify on the front row of the grid alongside Mario Andretti and set things up for the race itself. The race got underway. It was Andretti who took the initial start as the green flag was waved. Mario Andretti taking the lead. Mansell, in fact, dropping back a little bit on this opening lap into the first corner. Arie Luyendyk slipping through into second place in the Chip Ganassi run Lola. So Ford Cosworth Power still running in the top 4, in fact top 5, as Scott Goodyear coming up into 5th place, but Mansell still keen to get back on terms with Mario Andretti, running side by side with Arie Luyendyk, and it really hadn't taken long for Nigel Mansell to learn the techniques of oval racing and to try and find a way past the very experienced Dutchman. Luyendyk, winner of the Indy 500 in 1990 and an established oval expert, was determined to try and keep Nigel Mansell back in 3rd position, but Mansell had other ideas. He could see Mario Andretti just beginning to escape a little bit out front. Mansell determined to try and get on terms with him. Mansell once again sizing up the opportunity, and this time with a superb slipstream from behind Arie Luijendijk's car, diving past and moving up into second place. Reaching speeds of just under 250 miles an hour as they get to the end of the straights here at Michigan. And the early stages of the race seeing Andretti and Mansell dominating proceedings. Mansell now attacking Andretti for the race lead. Up to the outside, and the two Newman Haas cars running side by side. Mansell on the outside there, Andretti holding on the inside. And these two battling very hard indeed. No team orders involved in the Newman Haas team. Once they're out there, they have to play it for themselves, and Andretti having another little look at trying to get past Mansell once again, but Mansell into the lead, and it was a lead that he was going to hold on to for pretty much the remainder of the race. The Lola was certainly performing superbly well on the long ovals. Mansell had run very competitively at Indianapolis, as had Arie Luijendijk. And the Lola with the Ford Cosworth engine here at Michigan was showing the opposition the way to go. Into the pits for one of the several scheduled pit stops. You can see that right front tyre graining on the inside where it's been working hard, so new tyres on. As Mario Andretti, in fact, having just taken on new tyres, spinning in the pit lane, spins it back again to rejoin the race. No pre-warming of tyres allowed in IndyCar racing, and that just catching out even the most experienced of racers, perhaps meaning that Mansell was a bit more careful as he took off. Let's take another little look at Mario Andretti's incident there as he came out of the pits. Accelerating away from his pit bay and just putting in a little bit too much power too soon, and those cold Goodyear slicks not able to transmit that sort of power, and that saw him spinning round. Very neatly executed, another 180-degree spin, not losing too much time in the process. Carl Haas of the Newman Haas team keeping track of the laps and watching to see whether his team can bring home a 1-2 result. Mansell back out in front again, and at this stage having a very, very comfortable lead. Mario Andretti now a lap behind, coming up behind Mansell to try and unlap himself. So Nigel Mansell in front, Mario Andretti going past, but that was simply to put him on the same lap as Mansell, and Mansell taking things fairly carefully in these final stages of the race. Only the two Newman Haas cars on the same lap, everybody else at least one lap behind. Mansell starting his final lap. The white flag waved, and Mansell, an absolutely dominant performance here at Michigan. An important victory, this one, for Mansell in the overall championship, as Paul Newman and Carl Haas watch on to make sure that he gets it all the way to the checkered flag. Emerson Fittipaldi had a disastrous race here at Michigan, and it was this race in many ways that saw the Penske Challenge blunted. There was Mansell taking the victory and maximum points in the Marlboro 500. Fittipaldi was only able to finish in 13th place and one position outside the points. Andretti coming through in second place to make it a superb 1-2 result for the Newman Haas team. That put Mansell back in front in the overall championship on 123 points at this stage in the season to Fittipaldi's 105. And with Tracy also out of the equation, he had run in 5th place in the race, but he dropped right back and had to retire with engine problems. The Penske Challenge certainly was not looking very good here after the Michigan 500. Mansell suffering the effects of flu over this weekend as well, absolutely exhausted after the victory. But an important victory nevertheless, and Andretti delighted with his second place as well. And so on to the next victory for Nigel Mansell at New Hampshire, the Loudon circuit in New Hampshire, another short oval circuit, and this one of the finest races of the year in the words of Mansell himself. He took the pole position And with just a couple of laps to go, it was Mansell who was heading for victory. He drove superbly throughout the course of this race. He had to work his way up. He dealt with the traffic absolutely perfectly and fought his way past Paul Tracy just 3 laps from the end. And Tracy could do nothing to re-challenge on the final lap. So Nigel Mansell coming through to take the victory on the New Hampshire circuit after a truly superb win. And again, another important result for the championship. The checkered flags waved, and Paul Tracy could do nothing but congratulate Nigel Mansell on what had been one of his finest drives of 1993. Emerson Fittipaldi finishing in 3rd place behind Paul Tracy. The 2 Penske's going well, but on this occasion beaten by the mastery of Nigel Mansell. In the championship at this point, Mansell had a good lead. He was on 144 points after this win over Fittipaldi's 119 and Paul Tracy's 100. Congratulations from daughter Chloe, the whole Mansell family there, Leo and Greg, his 2 sons, and Roseanne there to congratulate him, and Mansell delighted with that victory. So Fittipaldi and Tracy really had their work cut out at this point. The championship was heading the Newman-Haas way, and the Penske's knew they really had their work cut out. Next race at Road America, in fact, was a win for the Penske team in the hands of Paul Tracy. And Emerson Fittipaldi was able to win a race at Mid-Ohio as well, which denied Mansell the opportunity of taking the championship there. But as they went to Nazareth, the last but one race of the season, Mansell had the opportunity of tying up the championship. Mansell on 170 points, Fittipaldi on 156 points. Nigel Mansell also taking the pole position, thanks to his standing in the points. The qualifying was actually rained off at Nazareth, so everybody lining up in the points order. And it was Nigel Mansell who soon took off in the lead. And it was a lead that he was again to hold on to for most of the afternoon. Scott Goodyear, the only man on the same lap as Mansell. And although the Penske's were trying everything to get on terms with him, they knew this was their last chance to pip him in the championship. It was Mansell's afternoon all the way. On to the final lap then. And although he was mixing in the traffic, it was traffic that he was lapping, because they were all at least 1 lap down on him. Only Scott Goodyear on the same lap. And Mansell taking the championship in fine style by winning his 5th race of the season, his 4th win on an oval circuit, and surely a record that nobody could have predicted when the season started at Surfers Paradise. Everyone predicting that Mansell would be competitive on the road circuits and on the street circuits, but saying that he would struggle to learn the oval tracks. But 4 victories on oval tracks certainly showed the experts to be wrong, and Mansell learnt the oval circuit racing very quickly indeed. Mansell becoming a true favourite amongst the fans with his performances over the year. They loved the fighting spirit that he showed. And Mansell himself very much more relaxed in IndyCar racing than he had been in the political world of Formula One, where sometimes the pressure had been seen to tell. In IndyCar racing, he had thoroughly enjoyed himself throughout the year and delighted to wrap up the championship here at Nazareth. Congratulations and hugs from the rest of the team, Carl Haas, Jim McGee, and everybody absolutely delighted with his victory. The 3rd championship win for the Newman-Haas team, having won with this man, Mario Andretti, back in 1984. and with Michael Andretti in 1991. Well, Mario was able to take his first win in 5 years during the 1993 season back at Phoenix. This was the second round of the championship, the round at which Mansell had to sit it out because of his accident in qualifying. Mario Andretti went on to take his 52nd career win here, and his first win, as I say, for over 5 years. It wasn't all his own way by any means. Paul Tracy was the man who looked as though he was going to win the race for much of the event. He stormed through into the lead with some very, very quick laps indeed, and pulled out a healthy lead over the rest of the opposition. Emerson Fittipaldi, the other Penske, in second place, and the Penskes were certainly looking very strong until this point. Tracy tried to lap Jimmy Vasser, got it all wrong into the retaining wall on the outside, and somehow everybody just managing to miss him as Tracy slid through to the inside. Another look in slow motion. Tracy just squeezed down on the inside, and perhaps with a lead like that, he really should have waited before trying to lap Jimmy Vasser. He threw it all away, and that was something that was to be repeated later on in the season as well. Emerson Fittipaldi up into the lead now, but he picked up debris from that accident, and at the next corner on the restart, it was Fittipaldi into the wall. So both Penske's out within the space of a few laps. Let's have another look as Fittipaldi, the car just breaking away from him as he came through turns 3 and 4. Fittipaldi unhurt, but it was not a good day for the Penske team. A great day though for Mario Andretti and the Newman Haas team. Delighted for Mario taking that 52nd win, and a superb performance for him. Welcome back to our look back over last year's season in preparation for the start of IndyCar 1994 tomorrow at Surfers Paradise. And a look at Paul Tracy, the man who really came on strong in the 1993 season. 24 years old as he went into the season, and his first full championship season, having raced 11 races in 1992 for Penske, some in the mobile car and some in replacement of Rick Mears. Rick Mears retiring at the end of 1992, Paul Tracy coming into the team full-time, and some superb performances. He was the only man to match Mansell in terms of number of race victories last year, with 5 race wins, the first of which came here at Long Beach. The third race of the season. He'd led the previous race at Phoenix, and the pressure was on him to a certain extent to try and produce the goods at Long Beach. Well, he didn't disappoint. At the circuit he made his IndyCar debut at in 1991. Paul Tracy came through to take the first win of his career, and a first win surely of many. It was just the reply he needed after that accident at Phoenix, and justified Roger Penske's faith in him. The second of his 5 wins came at Cleveland at the Burke Airport, on this very wide open spaces on the Cleveland track. Paul Tracy once again in dominant form. A tremendous battle for second and third places between Emerson Fittipaldi and Nigel Mansell, but it was Paul Tracy who really was in superb form all weekend and came through to take the victory. The Canadian who'd started his career in karting in Canada, raced in the UK back in 1986 in the Formula 4 2000 series held at Brands Hatch, moved back into the States, became the Indy Lights champion, the equivalent of Formula 3000 in 1990, really was beginning to show his mettle. And in front of the home crowd as well, in Toronto, Tracy took win number 3. A hugely popular home victory, this one, and another victory which he'd had to fight for, with a great battle between himself and Emerson Fittipaldi throughout the course of the event. Massive reception from the home crowd, and he was delighted with that performance. Win number 4 came at one of the finest road circuits in America, Road America, Elkhart Lake. This time Tracy was in unstoppable form. Nigel Mansell in second place just couldn't live with the pace of Tracy in the Penske on this particular day. The Penske was certainly seemed to have an advantage on the road circuits at this point in the season, seemed to have an improved mechanical grip over the Lola car, and Tracy was the man who could make it tell. This result putting him up into third place in the championship with a very faint opportunity of taking the title. But Tracy had thrown wins away before this point. We'd seen him throw the win away at Phoenix. He'd thrown a possible win away at Milwaukee as well. And he was to go on and throw away another possible win at Mid-Ohio a little bit later in the season. Perhaps as he matures, Paul Tracy will become a very true and consistent threat for the overall championship, and certainly many people consider him to be one of the favourites for 1994. So Mansell beaten on this occasion, Rahal by now in the Lola in third position, and Emerson Fittipaldi a slightly disappointing fifth place when he really had a chance of pressurising Mansell in the championship. On to the final race of the year at Laguna Seca, and win number 5 for the young Canadian. Once again, the Penske's ability on the road circuits coming to the fore. Tracy lining up on the front row with Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi taking the pole position, but it was Tracy who would soon go into the lead. Nigel Mansell, meanwhile, not having such a good race in this final event of the year, clouting Mark Smith fairly heavily into turn 1, and that putting Mansell pretty much out of the equation. Olivier Grouillard in the Eurosport sponsored car leaving the pits. Meanwhile, the battle up front was still between the two Penskes. Paul Tracy trying to hold off team leader Emerson Fittipaldi, and Tracy in trouble at this point as he'd managed to knock his seatbelts undone. He was rolling around in the cockpit quite seriously, but had communicated to his pits that he wasn't going to come into the pits until or if he lost the lead. He was going to try and hold on in front of Emerson Fittipaldi if he possibly could, and see if he could finish the race, even though he was moving around in the cockpit an awful lot. Coming up to lap slower traffic, including Alonso Jr. in the Valvoline car and Hiro Matsushita in the blue car up front. Some confusion as they came in to the next turn, and Fittipaldi, in trying to pinch the corner a little bit, just loses control of his Penske in second place, right across the sand into the tyres on the outside. But just shows how strong these Indy cars are, because Fittipaldi able to do a little bit of off-roading back onto the circuit and losing any chance of taking victory now from Paul Tracy, but able to get back onto the track. A lot of muck on the tyres, causing him to come off at the next kink, but Fittipaldi was able to hold on to second place with just 5 laps to go. He had no opportunity of retaking Paul Tracy, and Tracy went on to take the victory. So it had been another hard-fought win for Tracy. It gave him the chance to match Nigel Mansell in terms of overall victories in the year, and a superb first full season that bodes well for the future. Well, back in May at the Indy 500, there was an awful lot of action as well. As the race restarted towards the end, Nigel Mansell had actually been leading it, but at this green flag lap, just that little lack of experience on the green flag coming out again on restarting the race, and Mansell was truly and comprehensively blown away by Luyendyk and by Fittipaldi. There was Mansell trying hard as he brushed the wall in his attempts to stay with them. But as the race was again restarted with just a few laps remaining, Mansell wasn't quite able to keep on terms with Fittipaldi there in front, Luyendyk in second place, and Mansell had to settle for third place. It was the second win of his career at Indianapolis for Emerson Fittipaldi, the major event of the championship. He'd won it back in 1989 when he also went on to win the series outright, and Fittipaldi taking his second career win at Indianapolis. Well, certainly that was good in terms of monetary rewards as well. Fittipaldi may not have been able to win the championship in 1993. He was pipped to the post by Nigel Mansell. He won 3 races in the end throughout the course of the season, winning here at Mid-Ohio, the Lexington race, which had seen Tracy and Mansell come together in the opening laps, then Tracy going off when he'd been in the lead and giving the win to Emerson Fittipaldi. So that was win number 2. After the Indy 500 win, he also won at Portland. That was his third victory, but it wasn't enough to try and match Mansell, and he ended up second in the championship. He was, however, the highest money earner last year thanks to that win at Indianapolis, and won himself the grand sum of $2,575,554 throughout the course of the year. Alonso Jr., former champion himself in 1990, didn't have quite such a good year in 1993. Driving for the Gales team for the 6th year, he was to take just 1 victory throughout the course of the season. Reverting back to a Lola chassis for the Gales team in 1992, Little Al had won the Indy 500 in the Galma chassis, which was their own creation of Alan Mertens back in England, designed and built in England, the Galma chassis, but they decided to shelve the project and to return to running a Lola for last year. Alonso Jr. not having one of the best years that he's ever had in Indy cars, but here in Vancouver he was to take his only victory of the season. The race was led away by Scott Goodyear and Bobby Rahal, and Goodyear went on to lead many laps out in front, particularly in the first stages. Goodyear looking very, very strong. As the tyres wore and as the fuel load lessened, however, Goodyear seemed to struggle a little bit, and he became under more pressure from the likes of Bobby Rahal. At this point, Alonso Jr. a little bit further down the order. There was actually contact between him and Montemini at one stage. And meanwhile, more incidents and accidents going on. Arie Luyendyk was out during the first lap, and there was a traffic jam through the chicane. Olivier Grillard in there, Jeff Wood and Johnny Unser all involved in that particular traffic jam at the first chicane. Yellow flags being waved to slow everybody down, get everybody back on course. And so it came to be that Bobby Rahal was leading, and Alonso Jr. had moved himself up into second place. Mansell not having such a good run here in Vancouver, and Rahal, race leader, came into the pits for his final pit stop. This was the opportunity Alonso Jr. was looking for. He'd been denied in his attempts to find a way past Rahal, but now Rahal in the pits, Jr. was able to put in some very quick laps on his own and pull away a little bit. He then came into the pits, made his final pit stop, but thanks to those quick laps when Rahal was in the pits, he was able to rejoin ahead of Bobby Rahal, and Alonso Jr. it was who came through to take the victory here in Vancouver. Well, for 1994, a big change for Alonso Jr. as he will be part of the Penske Dream Team. He is moving to the Penske team, and we'll be seeing him in the Marlboro colours, not the familiar Valvoline colours, during the 1994 season. Many people's favourite for the championship in the Penske team. It'll be very interesting to see how he gets on against Emerson Fittipaldi and Paul Tracy. Welcome back to our look back and a look ahead at IndyCar racing. And we're taking a look now at Detroit 1993, which was a victory for Danny Sullivan. Danny Sullivan is one of the drivers that we will not be seeing anything of in the 1994 season. The Gallus team losing the Molson sponsorship, and Danny Sullivan out of the way. Mansell here in Detroit did not have a good time going past one of the wrecker trucks, lost it, got out on the slippery stuff, banged into the wall, and this was one of the lower points for Mansell's season. Up front, however, a great battle developed between Danny Sullivan and Al Unser Jr., the two teammates in the Gallus team. They were to have a few little incidents throughout the course of the season, and in fact here at Detroit, Unser a little aggrieved that Sullivan had pushed him across the line of some cones, which caused little Al to incur a 10-second penalty. At Cleveland during the year as well, they also came together and both spun out battling for 7th place. So relationship was not always that rosy between the two Gallus teammates, but on this occasion it was Danny Sullivan who came through to take the victory. But no Danny Sullivan in 1994, unfortunately. He's taken to NASCAR racing now, as we see Robbie Gordon there, just spinning out of 2nd place right at the very end of the race after performing so well in the AJ Foyt run Copenhagen car. Sullivan, one of several drivers not to be seen in the 1994 championship. We won't be seeing anything of Scott Brayton, except for perhaps at the Indy 500. Also Eddie Cheever and Roberto Guerrero out of full-time regular rides for the 1994 year. Robbie Gordon, who we can see there in the AJ Foyt car, spinning out of the way. We'll be seeing him in unfamiliar colours as he's joining Walker Motorsports, and he'll be in the Valvoline colours that we saw Al Unser Jr. racing in last year. So Sullivan winning his only race of the year last year, but not to be seen in 94. Bobby Rahal, the 1992 champion, as well as champion in 86 and 87, will also be going a little bit of a change this year, as he will be running the new Honda Indy V8 engine. So Honda making an appearance in IndyCar racing. It's a determined Honda factory effort to break into IndyCar racing and to provide and supply a competitive engine against the Ford Cosworth XP engine and the Ilmor Indy engine, formerly the Chevy engine. Honda have got their work cut out, but they are very determined, and with their record in Formula 1 to go by, they really have a great chance of going well. The AJ Foyt team this year will be running Davy Jones, man out of sports car racing, ran with Tom Walkinshaw Racing in the world of Jaguar sports cars. This is Willie T. Ribbs making a return to IndyCars in 1994. Former Dunlop Star of Tomorrow Formula 4 champion in Britain back in the late 70s. Who's been racing on and off in the States over several years and hoping to do a full season in 1994. And this is Arie Luyendyk, who told us a bit more about his plans for the year.
I realized that the team was very serious about 1994, going ahead with the program to purchase the new Lawless with the Ilmor D engines, which should be competitive. I saw the team was very serious about 1994. They hired ProServe to find sponsorship for the team and to put packages together. So it looked like it was a good program, and that's why I joined the team.
Arie Luyendyk telling us of his plans to be in the Indy Regency racing team this year, and they will be running with the Lola and the Ilmor engine. Michael Andretti, here he is. We see him last year on the podium at Monza, where he finished in 3rd position. That was his best result in Formula 1 last year. He's making a return to IndyCar racing, and he will be seen in the Works Reynard. The Reynard chassis will be the first time that's been seen in IndyCar racing. Another British chassis manufacturer comes on the scene, and Reynard's aim to be right up there amongst the front runners in the 1994 season. Raul Boesel continues with Dick Simon Racing, one of the front runners in last year's championship, and Stefan Johansson continues again with the Tony Bettenhausen team, again running a 1-year-old Penske chassis, talking there to Thierry Boutsen at the Laguna Seca race at the end of last year. Scott Goodyear sees a change of team for Scott Goodyear from Walker Motorsports. He is now going to King Racing, Kenny Bernstein's team, the Budweiser car, and Goodyear has been setting some very quick times in testing over the winter. Teo Fabi remains with the Hall Racing team. Pennzoil sponsorship, but a new car. He is running a Reynard, as is this man, Maurizio Gugelmin, who took part in 3 races at the end of last year and will be running with Chip Ganassi in the new Reynard with a Ford Cosworth engine. Andrea Montemini will also be competing in a full championship this year with the Project Indy team, which
IndyCar
Christian Danner has an involvement.
It's actually the last opinion polls about motor racing show that Formula One is the top, and the German Touring Car Championship is second, very close behind. And then next in the popularity is IndyCars, even ahead of rallying, which I think is very, very exciting and very good.
Also new for 1995 and developing in 1994, the Firestone Tyre Company making a return to IndyCar racing. So it will no longer be a monopoly for Goodyear in 1995. A huge testing program going on already for Firestone, and we will see a tyre war battle in 1995. So tomorrow it's the first race of the 1994 season at Surfers Paradise. 5 o'clock Central European time, that's 4 o'clock in the UK. It'll be repeated throughout the day, 6:30 in the UK, 6:30 AM that is, 12:30 and 9:30 in the evening. So plenty of opportunities to watch the first race of the championship. We'll be following 15 of the 16 races live here on Eurosport throughout the year, according to the schedule that you can see there. And it really does promise to be a highly exciting and closely fought season. Well, news from qualifying over the weekend already sees that Nigel Mansell has in fact taken pole position for tomorrow's race at Surfers Paradise. A superb time, 1 minute 34.877 seconds, sees him line up on pole position, and alongside him, interestingly enough, is Michael Andretti in the Reynard, the first time the Reynard has been seen in the world of IndyCar racing. Second row, we'll see Emerson Fittipaldi in the Penske, but nearly just over a second slower than Nigel Mansell, and alongside him, young Mexican Adrian Fernandez making his appearance for the Gales team. Alonso Jr. and Paul Tracy make it an all-Penske third row for Surfers Paradise race tomorrow. Maurizio Gugelmin and new rookie Jacques Villeneuve come in on row 4. Jacques Villeneuve, the 22-year-old son of Formula One superstar Gilles Villeneuve, making his IndyCar debut tomorrow in Australia. Row 5 will see Robbie Gordon and Jimmy Vasser, and row 6 Teo Fabi, Stefan Johansson. Tomorrow the battle on track starts for real, and you'll be able to watch every move here on Eurosport. I hope you can join us then. For now, from Ben Edwards, goodbye and see you tomorrow.
Valvoline presented the IndyCar World Series.